What's it really like inside of prison? That's what I'm going to be talking about in this one, people. So, before I get started, this video here will be no edits, no green screen like there normally is. This is just blunt, raw and unfiltered, just the way you like it. But I am actually sitting in a hotel room in a foreign country because I'm on a business meeting at the moment. And I have got some spare time, so if you can hear any of the noises in the video, do forgive us. So, what's it really like in prison? So, as the channel goes behind the bars TV, everybody finds, or a huge majority, especially my subscribers, love hearing about prison. Now, for the majority of people, it's people who haven't been to prison who love listening to these type of videos because there's something quite satisfying, interesting and intriguing in dark stories, the dark side of prison. People who have never been before, who hear the stories on this channel and other prison channels and prison documentaries on the TV. People who haven't been find these documentaries, YouTube videos very interesting, because it's something that the majority of people have never been through, who have never lived, who have lived a law-abiding life. Sometimes you might have been in a bits of trouble, might have been locked up before in a police station, but not to the severity of spending time or even years behind the door inside of prison. Now, the majority of you who are following this channel know my story, but a quick recap for those of you who are new to the channel. I was an IPP prisoner, which was more or less the same as a life sentence. It was a 99-year sentence, or should I say it still is, because there is a lot of people still serving the sentence who was stuck on it. Luckily, I had mine terminated in September, just gone, and I am now living a free lifestyle. Hence the reason why I can travel the world now, because whilst you're on that license, you cannot leave the country. So I'm making the most of every minute. But getting back into the video, what's it really like in prison? People don't normally tell you the straight facts, or they like to big it up, because people, or the majority of lads and lasses who have been inside a prison, have got some sort of ego when they come out and they want to act the big guy, the big girl, or whatever. Boast about prison stories, about how they've done this, how they've done that, how prison's made them a mean person, they're a big, nasty, don't want to mess with me type of person. Well, the reason why I've got such a good following and I don't get many negative comments, this channel is all positive, even though the stories I talk about are not positive. I get positive feedback on here because of the way that I produce the stories and the way that I tell the facts. Don't bullshit, and I don't come on here pretending to be something I'm not. What I will say, obviously the youngsters watching this channel, only idiots, divvies, muppets, it all comes under the same term, go to prison. But sometimes it's all to do with your background and the area that you were brought up in, and sometimes it's unavoidable. But people who will tell you the straight facts, only divvies and muppets go to jail. Yes, like I've just said, sometimes it's unavoidable, but if you can use your full capacity not to go to prison, then you're doing well. I learnt the hard way, but I'm on here teaching people about that hard lesson that I learned, especially more so, not just on here, more so right at the heart of it, in my home. Because I've got 4 kids of me own, 3 lads, and I don't want them going down that same route I went down. I'm actually getting my kids away from the area I was brought up in, for the simple fact that I want to break the cycle. I followed in my oldest footsteps, the people older than me who I looked up to. Glamorized prison, thought it was big and clever. So in my head, from a young age, anyone who has seen the Franklin documentary where I was in HMP Franklin, And some people can't understand or can't quite fathom the fact that from the age of 7 and 8 year old, I actually wanted to go to prison. Like I've mentioned, everyone who I looked up to when I was younger had been to prison, they glamorised it. So in my head, I wanted to be the next best thing. I wanted to be that person that went to prison, got a name and had that reputation and was that type of person. But it's not until you get there, you grow up, you realise you're mature and you're thinking, what a stupid mindset to be in. And that's why I'm on here telling these stories as well and passing it on to the youth so they can look at me and think, he's been there, he's done that, he's talking sense, and I might stop a few from going down that path. So what's it really like in prison? Prison is absolutely shit. You can't, when you're a youngster and your head's in there and you've got that type of mentality, you don't really give a shit. Prison doesn't really faze the majority. But whilst saying that, it doesn't mean to say that when you're in there you're enjoying it. As much as you can get on with your time inside of prison and just get on with it, there is times in your sentence where you become depressed, you're riddled with anxiety, anxiety turns to paranoia, and that paranoia inside of prison can land you in deep, deep trouble. Because there's been instances inside of prison when I've been suffering with anxiety. And anyone who's ever had anxiety can do funny things to your brain. When you're feeling anxious and you're out on the landing with 100 other lads, all running around, all trying to not be someone, but put up that guard as if anyone messes with us, you're going to get it back. So when you've got the anxiety and you're on that association, you're standing with the other lads, having a laugh, and then you think someone's taking the piss out of you, you think someone's staring, the anxiety is then turned to paranoia, then the paranoia turns, for me, into defensive mode. Then when you're on defensive mode, more so I'm talking about when I was in my early 20s, and that paranoia set in and I'm looking at people thinking these are trying to take the piss. And I've been in altercations before when I'm going to be bashing someone, or bashing each other, should I say, because it's not just one-sided when you're in prison. Obviously, if someone's in front of you who's the same size or who's game, and you're both having a face-off, then you're both going to be bashing each other. It's not just a one-sided thing, like I've just said. But these situations get blown out of control, spiral out of control, and sometimes it's over nothing. It's all in your mind. That depression's turned to anxiety, the anxiety's turned to paranoia, and this is what it's really like inside of prison. You've got to deal with that. You've got to deal with yourself, then you've got to deal with your padmate, then you've got to deal with another 100 different personalities on the wing. And if you're having a bad day, feeling funny inside your mind, and another person is, serious shit can go down. Because when you're in there as well, a lot of people are walking around with tools, or you're looking where the next best place is to go and get a razor or whatever to use as an instrument, because obviously you're in there full of dangerous people, and you're not just, when you're on your guard, you're not just thinking, right, I've got these. You're looking for whatever else you can use, because other people are as well. You're all looking for what tool you can use or where some tools might be stashed. And I've seen people getting carved up and get hurt really bad inside a prison over situations that could have been diffused within seconds. As I'm saying that about situations, I'll tell a little story about a situation that got blown out of control over a penguin biscuit, believe it or not. This was when I was in the HMP Durham on remand on B-Wing, and some of the lads were on the servery, and a lot of lads used to try and keep some of the food back on the servery for themselves. And luxury biscuits like penguins, believe it or not, them cheap little penguins, penguin biscuits, the lads used to try and keep them back. So on this day, the lad was a few spaces in front of me, went to get his food, walked off without his biscuits and his packet of crisps. So he's come back and he's shouting, saying, I didn't get me biscuit. Then the lad behind the counter, quite a biggish lad, quite chubby, You can tell he's had quite a few of these biscuits. Starts shouting back at him, saying, "You've had your effing biscuit, you're not getting any more." This lad's nearly over the counter, over the service, shouting back, screaming at him, saying, "I want me biscuit." The other lad's getting his back up as well, so they're both nearly over the counter at each other, all over a little chocolate biscuit. But it's not to do with the fact that it was just a biscuit. It could have been over anything. It's all to do with the way you conduct yourself and how you speak with someone. He's went back in shouting, "I didn't get me effing chocolate biscuit, where's it at?" If he went back in and said, "Excuse me lads, I didn't get me biscuit," might have been a bit of a different story. But because he's went in shouting, then he's then shouting back, saying you did get it, which, as you can imagine, the situation flared up, and the screws, luckily for them, were standing at the end of the counter, because the screws are normally there taking the food off, or they're there to keep an eye on it. So the screws diffused that situation, but that was a situation that could have gotten really hairy over a chocolate biscuit. And that would have been one of the ones with a joke on the back. What happens when you don't get your chocolate biscuit? You get a Mars bar down your face. Mars bar rhymes with scar. Prison slang is quite similar to Cockney slang, as in Mars bar equals scar, and a bacon. A lot of people's asked us when I'm being referring to the S-offenders as bacons, are saying, why do you call them a bacon? Because bacon bonds, a bacon bonds is a bacon butty down in London. The Cockneys call a bacon butty a bacon bonds. Bacon bonds rhymes with nonce. And a nonce is not on normal courtyard exercise. That's what they used to put outside the pads for the S-offenders, because they couldn't mix them in with the normal location lads. So the bacons. But there is a few different reasons why that term as well, because I asked the same thing when I was in Franklin prison. I said to one of the lads, why do they call them bacons? And he said a bacon is from a pig is a beast, and these S-offenders are absolute beasts. So that's another term. But like I say on here, for this video I'm just doing a bit freestyle. As I'm talking away, different things are popping into my mind like that, and I will just talk about that. But I will talk about Franklin prison as well, even though it was a long time ago. I've just turned 40, believe it or not. And I went in there when I was 21 years old, so it is coming up to nearly, 19 years when I went in there, and I spent over 3 years in that prison. A lot of people have come on the channel, well, I'm saying a lot, sorry, I'll rephrase that. A couple, one or two have come on and said, well, that isn't a very big amount of time to spend in a high security prison. Believe you me, a month is a month too long to spend in a high security prison. 3 and a bit year is a long time to fucking survive inside of a high security prison. Especially like Franklin at the time, because just before I was leaving there was ructions on. Absolute mayhem. So getting back to that, because a lot of people who've seen the HMP Franklin documentary, which I was in, loved listening to them stories on there. So the ones that are new to the channel as well, I will repeat these stories. I've told them a couple of times on this channel, but when I was in Franklin prison, the second day I was in there, Darren Barrett, an Al-Qaeda terrorist, was hot oiled, and a hot oiled means obviously a pan of boiling oil bubbling away, tipped over someone's head. One of the worst assaults you can do to someone inside of prison, because as you can imagine, it doesn't just scar them, it actually peels the skin off. Like someone when they get sliced to cuts, but if you pour a pan of hot oil over someone, the face is going to bubble up and scar, 3rd degree burns, and they're in hospital for a long time getting these wounds seen now, and it is a lot harsher than just a normal slice of a razor. Getting that type of thing happen here is obviously, as you can imagine, lifelong injuries, and the impact of the thought of that going over the back of your head when you've got your back turned. So I was in the kitchen with my pal cooking a steak, because on each wing in the high security prisons have got kitchens. A lot of you will be more aware of this since Hasham Abedi has just done this. to a prison officer inside of Franklin also. But he used melted down butter because they did do away with oil not long after these attacks inside of Franklin, which I'm talking about, because you used to be able to buy 1 litre cartons, or 1 litre bottles rather, of oil on the canteen in prison. So these were boiled up in the pan, 2 or 3 litres, until it was bubbling, and it was tipped over people's heads to use it as a weapon. Durham Barrett had that tipped over his head. 2 weeks later, Omar Khayyam, another terrorist, was in fear of attack because of what happened to Durham Barrett. He was scared for his own safety, so instead of doing something or having a fight with the screws or whatever to get off the wing, or going having an argument, or even telling the screws you want to be off the wing, he's went and done the same thing, bubbled up a pan of hot oil with a few litres in, went up behind Malacrudis, tipped it over his head, just so he could get moved off the wing. And that is the type of thing that was happening at the time in Franklin Prison with them type of offences. And I will talk about another attack which sticks in my mind, which I witnessed, and that was Paul Sykes' son, Sharpie, who had a coffee jar smashed in his neck. The coffee jar was full of chili powder, and the top of it was actually smashed and it was jagged. I actually seen the lad have it in his hand and ram it in Sharpie's neck, twisted, so the chili powder went all over. The lad took off, running down the landing. Sharpie didn't even scream, went in his neck, he just turned round, just went bowling down the landing after him, chased him down the landing. He went running into the sluice room, which is the laundry cupboard, sorry, not the laundry cupboard, the cleaning cupboard, where the cleaners keep the buckets and the brushes and different things for when they're cleaning up. He's legged it in there, shut the door behind him. He couldn't get in because the screws were standing on the bottom of the landing. They stood in Sharpie's way. They took Sharpie off the wing, obviously away to hospital, and that was the last we seen of him. And those were 2 of the attacks I remember, and I will talk about a third, when in Franklin Prison a lot of the lads were walking around with spikes, which I would say approximately 8 inches long, 8 to 10 inches long, and they were getting sharpened up in the woodwork shop, because obviously they've got grinders in there, and the lads were bringing them back to the wing. One of the lads on G-Wing, who was a debt-head, owed some money, and another lad who was on F-Wing was paid to sort him out, or serve him up, the term that they use inside of prison. So the lad in question was walking up after the workshops. There's a big long corridor. It's not a corridor as such, it's an alleyway, big long alleyway, where you've got the big metal fences going either side with a barbed wire at the top. You've got the screw stand at the bottom, a screw stand at the top with the dogs, and you can walk up there by yourself freely. Normally get escorted everywhere in the prison, but on workshops, when you're finished in the workshops and you're going back to the wing, they leave you at the gate. You can run up or walk up the runway back to your wing. The lad off G-Wing, who was the deadhead, was walking up ahead. The lad off F-Wing came legging it up like that, as if he was jogging past, because a lot of lads did used to jog past and go back to the wings. He's went jogging up, just went like that, banged straight in his neck, pulled it out and just kept on jogging as if nothing had happened. This lad was standing like that, blood just squirting out like that. He hadn't even realised what had happened. Screws did none the wiser. He's went walking off onto G-Wing like that, blood coming out of his neck. None of the screws or anyone who was on the walkway could see or knew what had happened, apart from the select few like myself who was behind, who witnessed everything. He went running, the lad off F-Wing went running back onto F-Wing, and nothing more come of it. Obviously the lad didn't know who it was, because it was that quick when it happened. The lad off F-Wing went running back on there. Bob's your uncle, Fanny's your aunt, he's been paid for serving him up. He's went on there, he's had his prison justice. He's been served up for being debted up and not paying his debts. That was his warning, to get the debts paid off, or there will be further repercussions. Needless to say, a week later, his debts were paid off. But that's just what happens inside a prison. If you mess around with people like that, and you don't pay your debts, you're going to get found out. And he got found out. But I just thought I would tell these stories as well on here. Let people know, as the title says, what really happens inside of prison. And those are the things that happen inside a prison. Now, going back to the remand prisons like HMP Durham, where people get remanded straight from the courts, and people who have just been sentenced are there. Normally, once you're sentenced, you get moved on to another prison. You don't normally stay in that type of prison. You either go to category B, where A, B, C, or D. You get categorized whilst you're in there. As soon as you've been sentenced, you have, or they have, a board to decide what category prisoner you are, what risk you pose. Then you will be risked accordingly, either A, B, C, or D. Then you've got a few weeks to wait before you get transferred. Sometimes once the prisons are ram-packed and they're waiting for spaces, it sometimes could take months, but normally you get put anywhere at the moment because the prisons are that overcrowded. You used to get a chance, or a choice rather, put down which 3 prisons you want to go to, and more often than not you would get your first pick. When I had my IPP and I got sentenced, I put down Franklin as my first pick, and that's where I ended up. But them type of prisons are full of trouble, full of stuff happening on a daily basis, because the remand prisoners who are just fresh in off the streets, I would dare say 3/4 at least, are addicts. They're addicted to some type of drug or alcohol. So they're coming in and they're doing the cold turkey, and they're running around looking for drugs on the wing, which is normally either spice or subbies. It used to be brown, but not so much now, and green. But the majority of the ones that get sold now is either spizzle, spice, or subbies. And everyone's running around off their heads, or running around waiting to get off their heads, looking for stuff. So them type of prisons are non-stop. Normally the other prisons, more so the Cat A's and B's, are a lot more relaxed and more chilled, because people are just getting on with the time and the long terms. The category C's are absolutely like I've just described there. Everyone running around like lunatics trying to get whatever they can to get through the sentence, to pass a bit of time. And there's not much peace in them type of prisons unless you get put on an enhanced wing. And an enhanced wing is for the prisoners who have never had any warnings, and they've kept their head down, and they just want to get on with the time. Mostly it's the fitness lads, they're into the gym, they don't take anything, and they're just in there to do the time. Get to the gym, keep their heads down, have a good bunch of lads round them, and just get on with the time and get back out as quick as possible. But then, like I say, you've got the ones that are off the heads and they're not asked about what they're doing, they just want to get off their heads, and they're causing carnage. So the Cat C's, or like I've just mentioned, unless you're on the enhanced wing. The category D prisons are a lot. I've never been in one, but I do know a lot of people that have been in them, and a lot of people say they don't like them because they're full of grasses. The majority of people that are in there, or not the majority, but a lot of them are grasses. There's a lot of bacons in there mixed in as well, and these are the ones that'll grass on you. So if you have altercations in there, more times than not, you're getting sent straight back to a category C, because if you have an altercation with someone, they're not going to take it, they send you straight back, and these bacons will grass you straight up. So that is the different category of prisons, people. So I just thought I would come on, do a bit of a freestyle, talk about a few different topics. Instead of just talking about one, do a few different ones. But let us know what you think of these videos, because these are quite easy to do. I don't have to research them, I just freestyle it. And as I'm going through the floor, different things pop into my head, and I'll talk about a wide range of different topics, all obviously relating to prisons. So people, let us know what you thought of that, and let us know if there is anything you want us to talk about. I will get it up on here. But as usual, if you are enjoying the content, everyone, remember to comment, like and subscribe. Hope you enjoyed that. Take care and enjoy the rest of your day. Stay safe.